So here we are, and the basis of the construction is complete around this wonderful cut down piece of foam. As you can see, there are a few spots where the foam hasn't quite been cut in the most even manner, but that's not going to be too much of an issue because I'm thinking I'm going to go all the way around the outside with some kind of filler. So it's going to meet up very nicely and it's going to hold everything securely in place when it's finished. I decided for my first attempt at something like this, I'm just going to go for the single layer of subterranean area rather than being too ambitious immediately. And that means that I've got enough pieces using these as floors. They're the flattest of what are traditionally the wall pieces. So underneath here you can see that on the ruined side I'm going to have these bits of rubble down here, and a couple of changes have been made since I was in the planning stage. The support system here, I've used some of these pieces and they're going to be nicely secure into the ground when it's all finished. Nothing's actually stuck down at this point because I'm going to give it a bit of a field test before I actually stick anything down. So you can see what it looks like from one of the sides here all the way down the subterranean area to the other side. So there is going to be some cover provided by those supports. And this is the view into the completely closed off tunnel end of the board. So that one's looking a little bit more secure. To make these supports, you can probably tell that I've just taken some of the cross frame pieces and cut out the middles, so there's plenty of space for things to fit through there. I've used doors on all the corners, so I believe that's going to preclude anything of size 4 from going down there. Although of course they will be able to jump down onto this bit from the top. These two sides I'm not entirely sure on whether there's going to be enough support. I've got these two doors, one at each end, and then these supports in there as well. At the moment it looks a little bit wobbly, but when it's all secure down there, then hopefully there's not going to be any movement on top here. And even if there is, it's not going to fall apart because it's stuck together, wrapping all the way around pretty much. So it should be fine to balance any models on there without risk of injury to them. You'll notice that it's completely symmetrical. Both sides are equal, so one player will start off on this side and the other player will start on this side. Both sides have the same access to the subterranean area and the same access to this ruined part as well, which is slightly easier to get up and down from. And it's designed so that in scenarios where each player has opposite corners to deploy in, so player 1 would have this one and this one, and player 2 would have this one and this one, then it's still 100% even under those circumstances as well. When you're dealing with something that does change the game quite drastically, such as an area that is inaccessible to much of the table, then making sure that it follows all the other rules for being playable and fair, I felt was very important, since it is thinking outside the box or outside the cube, as it were. So here's a little example of what it'll look like with a full set of terrain on top of it as well. I like the idea of having a little piece of terrain over the top of this entrance here into the underground. And of course setting up this ruined building here next to the ruined floor makes perfect sense to me. So of course you're not losing anything above ground in terms of setting up for a game. The only bit of floor area that you're losing is this small bit along this side here. So even if you're completely ignoring the underground aspect, you can still have virtually a full game of Deadzone on top. Plus the extra juicy and exciting underground battles, undoubtedly, to take place. There are pros and cons, of course, to using the underground area. If you have teleporting troops, then they're going to be very, very useful, because there is limited access to this area, and they are one of the few ways that you'll be able to jump in and out of it easily. If you're taking a lot of large creatures, then you just won't be able to fit down there through the various barricades and doors. So, potentially a good place to hide. But if you're spending all your time down there, of course none of the objectives will be down there, because objectives are always placed on the highest stack for the particular cube, and there is no underground area that does not have any floor on it. Even these here have a little bit that's remaining, so the objective would go on top of there. So if you want to score objectives, going down there may not be the way to go. Depends on the scenario though. It's not always about picking up objectives. So I think this is going to be a very exciting table. I'm going to probably leave it like this and give it a test game just before I do the final attachments just in case I want to make any changes if I find that something perhaps doesn't run as well as I hoped over the course of a game. And then I may add some extra supports as well. As you can see, you can just happily sit things on the edge here. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting it like that on the edge because it is just going to slide off. But any other way, and it's pretty much fine. As long as you don't have a load-bearing edge right on this raised bit here, then you should be fine. Don't know if you can see this, but I did score some lines across the whole thing there, so you can see where each cube is. When it's finished being decorated though, I'll find some other way to divide up the cubes visually, but for now that will do, and it's ready for the test drive, I think. So I'll try and get a little bit of video footage of that game in progress as well. It won't be a full battle report, obviously, because this table is not battle report ready yet, clearly. But once I've done that, I should be able to finalise the design and then get to decorations. So let me know what you think, let me know if you've got any suggestions before it's finalised, and I will say ta-ta for now.